Okay, we're picking back up here with Henri de Tonti, or we'll say Henry de Tonti. Um, this explorer, and notice his painting here. He's very interesting. He was either Spanish or Portuguese, but he was raised in France and he was a good friend of the Lemoyne brothers, Bienville and Iberville. And so he was sent to help with exploring the new land. And if you notice his hand right here, there is not a hand, it's actually a hook. Okay. So he was known as the Iron Hand. That was his name. But actually, it was just he lost it during a battle, but because he had been a soldier, but he was sent to help with the Bienville brothers, the Lemoyne brothers. And he was also very helpful in dealing with the Indians. He was a great help to Bienville in doing that. Unfortunately, while they were in the settlement up at 27 Mile Bluff before they ever moved down to Mobile, or right before they actually made the move down to Mobile, he died of yellow fever. It was caused from mosquito bites. And so he was buried up there at 27 Mile Bluff, but it's in an unmarked grave. So no one really knows where that is, but they do have documents stating that he was buried there. And today, his legacy still lives on in Mobile. Downtown, it's kind of small, but follow my little pointer right here if you can. This building right here is that tallest building downtown, the RSA Tower building. If you've seen that one with the big pointy top on it, that's it right there. Well, just to the north of it, right over here in this little area, that's called Tonti Square. It's a whole neighborhood of beautiful townhouses that have been there for a long time, and that's what they look like right there. And that whole district is known as Tonti Square. And there is a place that's a brewing company downtown that they've named themselves the Iron Hand Brewing Company. You see the little hook on their sign for his hook right there? So that's the Tonti Square is named for Henri de Tonti because he helped the Lemoyne brothers make the move over here and to get along with the Indians. He's real fascinating. All right, so my next slide. Oh, let's get some notes on Henri de Tonti. We'll stop the video and let you do that. Okay, next we're going to learn about the cassette girls. The cassette girls. Remember our definition of cassette? It's a small package or box. And if you notice in the painting, all the girls that were arriving are carrying their little cassettes. So there they are. And that's supposedly Bienville there. And then here are all the young settler men coming to get a look at the young girls because they're going to marry them. They're going to find one and marry them. And in the meantime, Bienville had a home there at 27 Mile Bluff, and he had a French woman that was his housekeeper, and her name was Madame Langlois, and she helped train the girls how to cook, and she taught them how to use the Native American herbs and spices and things that were found locally. And when that's paired with French cooking, that's called Creole cuisine. So if you've ever heard the word Creole, it just means a blend of French, Spanish, and Native American. And down in New Orleans, they mix in the African American styles of cooking. And together, all of that is known as Creole cuisine. And so the girls learned how to cook and how to be good wives. And the reason they came is because back in France, they were either from very poor families, they were starving more or less, or the girls were orphans. And so the government sent them on a ship known as the Pelican. The name of the ship that they came on was known as the Pelican. And they were sent over. And if you go to our museum, I think this is at um, I think this is not necessarily the Mobile History Museum downtown. I think it's actually Gulf Quest because I could be wrong. Anyhow, it's from one of our museums downtown. It's a magic mirror, and I love to visit it because when you go into this area, you see the little wooden boxes, a little cassette, and this would be the room of one of the girls, what it would have looked like. And in the magic mirror, two of the young women that were chosen will kind of give you their story if you go up to the magic mirror. And it's not really them, but I think that's neat how the museum chose to do that. So go visit our museums downtown. You're going to see some really neat things. And so those are our cassette girls. And look, it's a bluff. A bluff is a high area of land overlooking a river or body of water. And so that's why that was called 27 Mile Bluff. It was higher to keep from mosquitoes, but it didn't keep them from giving Henri de Tonti the yellow fever and killing him. So that brings us to our activity, and we're going to do a planning activity from Talents Unlimited. And oops, my video went too far. I'm going to go back. If it'll go back. It's moving very slow. And I will start talking about Dolphin Island while we're here. No, there it goes. Okay. We'll be doing our planning activity later. Let me go ahead and move on to Dolphin Island. Dolphin Island, notice the spelling. It's not dolphin, it's dolphin. And if you can remember who was a dolphin, okay, that's going to be a prince that's due to inherit the crown. So the original name of Dolphin Island was Massacre Island because when the first explorers came there, they found piles of bones and skeleton bones, human bones covered up. And it looked like there had been a massacre, but really it was an Indian burial ground. So it wasn't really people had not been massacred. It was just an Indian burial ground. So they renamed the island and after Louis XIV of France's great grandson. That's who was going to become the king, the Dauphin, the future Louis XV of France. So that's why they named it Dolphin Island. So it became the actual bay. If you look right here, my pointer is the bay. The bay was not then as deep as it is now. They've actually dredged it out to make it deep enough for big ships to come in. But back then, ships could not get into our bay like you would think. So they would pull up just off of Dolphin Island, and then the goods would be taken by smaller boats wherever they had to be. So look at the street sign here. Here in Mobile, we have a Dolphin Street. Again, not dolphin, but Dolphin Street. So there's just one more example of the French influence on our community. So let's look over at some changes that have happened to Dolphin Island over time. This is what it looked like in the 1700s. Notice that it extended all the way into Mississippi. Dolphin Island did. This line right here would have gone all the way over into Mississippi. In the 1800s, something happened. Look at the change. This whole extension of the island disappeared. In the 1900s, it came back and then disappeared again. Came back, had some more breaks. In 2019, it looked like this. Just last year, it looked like this. So what do you think some of the changes could have been caused by? What do you think? So we could stop the video and have a discussion. What do you think caused some of those changes? Okay. French forts. Let's talk about the forts built by the French. And if you notice this building right here, these buildings right here, look at the big tall tower downtown. This is Fort Condé downtown. Now, it's a remake. In 1717, remember the French settled Mobile in 1704. They started at the Bluff in 02, but then they moved in 04. By 1717, a fort had been built in Montgomery to serve as a trading post. It's called Fort Toulouse, later as Fort Jackson, but Fort Toulouse. The French and Native Americans were getting along, so nothing really bad took place there. But down after 27 Mile Bluff, the Lemoyne brothers moved to Mobile in 1723. They constructed the fort that we know as Fort Condé. Most of the workers who built the fort were enslaved men who had been brought to Mobile from villages in Africa. So it was slave labor that built the fort. but I want you to take a look at it. I drew a yellow line here so that you can see how what we have represented downtown. The entire fort had been demolished at a certain point, but when they were building our tunnel system, they had to go in and excavate the land. That means go through and dig deep into the earth and see what was down there. They knew something historical had to be there. So some archaeologists went and dug around, and they actually found the foundations of the original fort. And they went back to France. They took a trip back to France. Different members of the Mobile City Council and archaeologists, they went back and found the plans, the original plans from the 1700s for the fort. And they brought them back and they rebuilt what we see now. But they could only rebuild a certain portion of it. And that's what we see here, okay, on this left side of it. When we go to visit, we're actually seeing what was rebuilt on the foundation, and it's rebuilt exactly to the plans from the 1700s. And to give you an example of what some of the buildings look like on the inside, they did put a couple of little replicas inside there. But this whole portion on the right side was totally we could not rebuild it because of the tunnel system. But there is our Fort Conde, yet another example of the French influence. Look what would happen from the fort all the way to the water was a wharf, and that was called King's Wharf. And somewhere down there is where they found one of the cannons that's on the outside of the fort. So that's where the wharf would be. It'd take them straight out to the water from the fort. The more French influence continues in the early 1800s. France sent a bishop. His name was Catholic. He was a Catholic bishop, Michael Portier, and he came to Alabama to minister to the French colonists because most of them were Catholic. And he began in 1830 by founding Spring Hill College. So right across the street from our school, right across Old Shell Road, sits Spring Hill College. And notice the very old St. Joseph's Chapel. It was founded by this man right here, Bishop Portier. And he sent back to France for some more priests to come over to staff the school. They actually taught the lessons at the school. And then he went on in 1835 to have this convent built on Spring Hill Avenue. It's called the Visitation Convent. It was also a girls' school. And so he sent to Washington, D.C., some nuns, or rather just religious women from the same convent in Washington, D.C. He asked them to come down to Mobile and staff this school as teachers. And so that is still there on Spring Hill Avenue. Next time you go down Spring Hill Avenue, before you get to Mobile Infirmary Hospital, take a look. Just watch over onto the left, and you'll pass by these gates and see these buildings right there. They were built in 1835 on Spring Hill Avenue. And he didn't stop there. If you've been downtown, you've seen the building with the gold domes on the top up there. That's the cathedral. In 1837, he constructed the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception in downtown Mobile. And it was opened by 1850. So it took them a while to build it. Because remember, they didn't have cranes and machines like we do today. Everything was done by hand. So it was very difficult. So if you look at this building, it was done by hand, a major building. But there's the French influence. Spring Hill College, the Visitation Convent, and the cathedral downtown. And let's not forget Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras in 1703, when the French were moving down from the bluff towards this area, the Spanish were they had already had torch lit parades, and so combining that with the French, by the 1830s, they were already starting to have parades. And if you want to take some time to read this from an actual PowerPoint, you can. I'm not going to go into everything, but there's Joe Cane. We have Joe Cane Day on that Sunday. This is a whole history behind the king cake and the history of our Mobile Mardi Gras. But that is yet another example of the French influence on our city. And there's our king cake that we all love. And that's explained in the slides as well. So you can go back and watch that. Let me go back. I went too fast. But I think that's going to end our lesson. And from this point forward, you just have these Talents Unlimited activities to do relating to our French explorers and the French influence on our city of Mobile. So I'm going to stop the video and you can start making sure you have your notes and get ready and do your Talents Unlimited activities.